The answer is always pretty simple. They don't know much, right? So you're always like, oh, is there anything really surprising? Well, yeah, people don't know anything. And that's scary in one sense because there's a lot of important decisions that are all going to be kind of integrated here. And they don't do well in any one specific area. As I was talking about earlier, Social Security actually tends to be one of the better areas. And there's been hundreds of millions of dollars spent educating people in that area from the government for decades now. And it's still not very good. So, and I was talking about this morning, it's going to be hard to move public perception in a lot of places. So where are we going to move perception of products, reverse mortgages? It's going to have to be at the kind of advisor level. That's where we're going to have more of an impact. Changing how all consumers in America view reverse mortgages, that's a very difficult task. I don't think that means we don't try it, but it's hard. So financial advisors are going to be a little bit better of an opportunity there to move there. One of the things we also have at the college, if people are interested in retirement income planning, that link, you can Google it too, just Retirement American College. We have a video library of financial advisors, experts, about 500 videos on there now. You probably won't watch all of them, highly doubt it. I have not watched all of them, but those are free. We give them out to everybody, so it's a good resource if you're thinking about a topic. Now, one of the areas that we started to get involved with reverse mortgages is in our education program, RICP. Now, the RICP program is specific on retirement income. And I say, why is this important to bring up? Well, actually, it's that number down there at the bottom. Right now, we have over 10,000 financial advisors enrolled in the program. That's a lot. The college has been around for 89 years. Last year was the first year in 89 years that any program passed what the CLU did for education. CLU is a traditional insurance one. CFP never passed it. RICP finally passed it, 10,000 advisors in it. That's a lot of people learning about retirement income planning in the financial services industry. When you say more than CFP, more than CLU, I think that rings to a lot of people. This is where companies and financial services are going now. They're going to retirement income planning. And part of retirement income planning is going to include our home equity. And we teach that in the course. We've had Shelley Giordano and the Longevity Funding Task Force and other experts we bring in. And that's how we teach this. It's different than other areas. We actually have about 70 now different experts in this program. So some of these names, if you read Wall Street Journal or anything, you probably run into some of these, the Wade Pfau, Michael Finke, Kitses. If you're in kind of reading stuff, you'll notice these names. If you haven't kind of seen some of these names before, next time you read Wall Street Journal, actually if you took this list, you'd probably find at least 2 of them in there today. And these are all the people we brought into the program. And so we've done it different in the past. It's not just Jamie Hopkins boring people to death with a lecture. It's experts in the industry that we brought in. So we're teaching advisors a little bit differently. And we did the same thing when we got to reverse mortgages. We brought in experts, people doing research in that area, into the program to teach advisors about it. And a lot of the videos kind of look like this. That's just a screenshot of it. There's me. So I like showing myself. It's nice. I'm on the big screen. So financial services. Now, what do you guys need to know about us? Well, I put up some numbers here. Completely useless numbers, right? 40 trillion, $1.3 billion a year in premiums for insurance companies. Why do I say they're useless? Because if I listed up there 50 trillion in asset management, would it make a difference to you? No, right? Those numbers at some point get too large for us really to care about. What's the point of this? Why do I use numbers here? Well, one of it is just to show that this is a really big industry, right? That's the important aspect of it. The actual amount of numbers doesn't matter. Trends matter, but the 40 trillion or 50 trillion doesn't make any difference to you. Same thing there with insurance. And I think the interesting thing about this, not so much we've got $1 billion of insurance premiums paid each year, but that the trend that we've got about 50-50 now in insurance of property and casualty, the PC versus life insurance. Well, that's interesting, right? And so we're going to see kind of changes in that too over time. I list some of the other players in the market. Banking, as we have a lot of bank here. Real estate, REITs has become a big thing when I go to conference now. I see tremendous amount of different REIT companies out there saying, here's our real estate investment trust. How does this fit into your overall portfolio? That's becoming a bigger thing. Venture capital, those type of things. There's a lot of money in those areas. Almost a little bit separate from the individual planning side, but still important. So as a retirement income financial service professional, we do a couple things out there. One, we go to a lot of conferences and we get a lot of designations. So those are two very big things about the industry. There's probably a conference every week in financial services. So if you want to go to conferences in financial services, there is no shortage of them. You probably have 20 here in San Diego a year for financial services. They are everywhere. There's a lot of people in the industry, and you'll see, like my name has all those letters behind it. That'll be a trend when you get there too. If you look at business cards, you'll see a lot of extra letters behind them. Those are two very big things that are different from a lot of other industries. How many attorneys do we have in here? I'm one. Well, we got Barry. So we got two. That's probably enough in the room. Jim was here earlier. So yeah, we're pushing how many attorneys you can have in one room already. But it's not as big of a thing in the legal field to have all these extra letters behind your name. But in financial service it is, and that was a surprise to me when I kind of first joined, that everyone wants 12 different things behind their name to show that they're an expert in every field. And so that's a challenge too, to say, do consumers understand any of these letters? And a lot of times the answer is no. But for the industry it matters. People will take pride in that, having their business card with 3 lines of letters after their name. Compensation for industry, this is something that's kind of coming under view right now. So we have our kind of traditional fee-only planners, and a lot of people kind of are pushing that agenda, that model. Commission only or traditional insurance. We do have hybrid models, not used that frequently, kind of a mix of both. A lot of fee-only planners that get paid a flat fee. Some of them actually say, you know what, we can't even do some commissions. We stay away from it completely. CFP model really is kind of that fee only. Some people have salary and bonuses. Again, not that big of a thing in financial services. But compensation does drive behavior. Every industry, compensation drives behavior. It happens in financial services too. So sometimes you have to understand how somebody's compensated, to how it's going to work, a product's going to work with them. If they're basically compensated with assets under management, they don't always care about purchasing other products, right? It doesn't matter. They have assets under management. They want to keep as many of them there as possible. That's how they get compensated. So compensation is going to be an issue kind of moving forward also. And that kind of ties us in here. Most people have probably heard about the Department of Labor regs that are coming out. Is that, you see kind of a hand if people know what I'm talking about, or no? No? Not very many people here? A couple. So Department of Labor right now is reviewing something for financial services. We actually should get final rules sometime this month, probably within the next couple of weeks. And the idea there is the expansion of the fiduciary standard. Now, people are familiar with the idea of a fiduciary standard. Yeah, more heads are nodding there. Well, under ERISA, the Employee Retirement Income Security Act of 1974, which everyone should have on the tip of their tongue too, right? That's where all of our qualified plans, our 401ks, all the standards and rules were created for them. Now, inside of that, there's something called a fiduciary standard, that the people running the plan, the investments, basically have to ask in your best interest. Not just good for you, but in your best interest. Once you get over to IRAs, people roll their money out of those 401ks, that standard goes away. And so we see there, the government has been focusing a lot on this, is seeing people move out of large company plans, rolling their money over to an IRA, buying the exact same investment and paying more for it. That's what the government focused on in their kind of last white paper on this. And so they say, we really shouldn't have that occurring, right? That these are retirement assets, and everyone generally agrees that we should be doing what's best for our clients. I don't think anyone disagrees with that point. How exactly we get there, though, people do disagree with, because everyone's compensated different. We sell different products. Every company doesn't have a full arrangement of mutual funds and insurance products. So it can be challenging to say, well, are we really doing what's best, or are we doing what's best inside of our little silo? So that change, which is going to occur now, you will still hear some people saying it's not going to happen. It's happening. It's basically done. And that's going to change the industry a lot. We're going to see our traditional insurance companies being more comprehensive in nature because they're going to have to be. They're going to be under a model of best interest of the client. And so that means, right, if you're, and to me that means if we're looking at a comprehensive plan and I don't discuss home equity, am I in trouble now? Probably. If we looked a couple years ago, we saw this with long-term care. And a lot of financial advisors didn't discuss long-term care insurance. It said, it's too expensive, I just don't even bring it up. Well, they started getting sued because they said, you know what, that's best interest. You have to at least bring that up, check it off, and say, well, we covered it, right? They said no, but we covered it. That's going to have to happen for home equity, too. Right now, when I talk to financial advisors, there's companies that don't allow them to talk about home equity, that don't allow them to talk about reverse mortgages. There's even one company that has software that models the home equity. They are not allowed to discuss it in the client meetings. All they can say is, we refer you back to our printout. That is terrible, right? That's about as bad as you can get, where you give somebody a printout and say, well, we're not allowed to discuss it, but we provided it for you, right? And that's basically the check, but that's got to get better over time. That fiduciary expansion will be disruptive for the industry. I'm still of the side, it's probably a good thing in the long run. It's going to cause some companies trouble, but it is going to be a good thing in the long run. And then we get to this idea, and this is where I'm going to start, even do more teaching, unfortunately. People who didn't like school are like, why is a professor up here talking to us today? I didn't like school before, and he's just going to start teaching us things. I even build in questions for you guys, too, to answer. I won't cold call on people, and I did bring an incentive. I have $25 Visa gift cards, so if you answer the question correctly, I'll give you a gift card. So it's a pretty good system, right? It's better than getting an A or a B. Getting money is better. I think I would have had better grades if they handed out cash at the end of tests, too. So then we get over here, and this is really where the industries are going to be next, retirement income planning. Even that language is important. 5 years ago, you probably saw ads saying retirement planning. If you watch closely now on TV, if you watch basically any sports thing, I only see like 4 commercials now on sports stuff, right? I see retirement income planning, bring your money here, right? That's one commercial, usually a car commercial. When I watch sports, there's usually a Viagra commercial too, right? So I'm like, okay, well, this is the target market here. Bring us your money, buy a car, and take some Viagra. Okay. That's the whole thing. And then a beer commercial too, to make yourself feel better after you have to go through those other things, right?
How about the gambling, the FanDuel?
What? Oh yeah, now we do have all the FanDuel, and yeah, come spend your money and gamble on sports. But it's not gambling because there's skill involved.
Right.
Yeah, that's the argument, actually. So what is retirement income planning? Retirement income planning is all about that accumulation phase, then turning over to, we say decumulation, but that's a bad word, it sounds bad. So I like income planning instead. That's the phase we're talking about. Taking all those assets that you've saved up over your life and turning them into secure income in retirement. One of those assets is going to be what? It's your home equity. For average American, I've got a slide that comes up later, right? There's more wealth in there than your 401ks and your IRAs, right? That's just the reality. That's where people's money go. Part of it's because it's automatic, in a sense. Why is it automatic? Well, you pay your mortgage each month, right? You just don't really have a choice to stop paying. Yeah. you kind of have a choice, but not really, right? So it's kind of automatic. So we actually get more people saving that way. We've made some adjustments in 401ks to deal with that too. We automatically enroll people because, and when we leave it up to the individual, they don't do a good job of saving money. We know that. So we're trying to do things to kind of improve that. Social Security, home equity, 401k automatic enrollment. They're all automatic, right? That's how we're getting people to save. Now, decumulation, turning assets into income is not automatic. You've got to make decisions here and plan, right? Your home equity isn't going to, at age 65, turn into an income source for you automatically, right? It's not going to happen. Social Security, everyone kind of collects at 62, so it's pretty close to automatic nowadays. But it's not the best thing for most people. Far too many people collect early instead of deferring. 401k, government will force that to be automatic at one point at 70.5. We're going to say you got to take money out. Again, just doing that's probably not the best thing. But retirement income planning is really about goal-based planning and risk planning. And I'm going to go into some of these risks, ones that I really care about. Public policy risk is one that I spent a lot of effort on lately. Part of that's because I'm an attorney and public policy risk fits nicely into that. That's the government pulling the rug out from under you, right? Which they do. It makes retirement income planning very difficult. I say it's like shooting a moving target in the wind. You say, here's my goal, I'm going to shoot at that. And what does the government do halfway there? They change the rules on you. And so it's difficult. It's not that easy. I talk about things like Medicare sometimes, and my friends are like, well, what should I know about Medicare? And I'm like, you shouldn't learn anything about Medicare today in your 30s. You know why? Medicare in 30 years is not going to look anything like it does today. There's no reason to plan for Medicare rules today if you're 35. If you're 55, 60, sure, we can start learning about Medicare then, but not that early. It doesn't really make any sense. So one of the things here I wanted to get across to everyone here is I'm going to teach you a little of the language that our industry uses. As you go and talk to financial advisors and you try to say, look, we need reverse mortgages as part of this discussion, there's strategies out there. The first one, NUA, that'll be on the next slide. Somebody can win their gift card on that one. Sequence of returns I'm going to go into later on too. And that's a risk that's unique to retirement planning. We don't worry about it for the rest of our life. Roth. Well, what's a Roth? Well, Roth IRA, Roth account, there's slightly different things there. Conversions, taking money from an IRA and putting it into a Roth. The 72T penalty tax. That's that early withdrawal penalty tax. Most people are probably at least familiar with that, right? You take money out too early before 59.5 and you get penalized on it. Okay. Safe withdrawal rate, we've got a question on that. And then RMDs, your required minimum distributions at age 70.5. So this is a lot of the language, right? And actually I was saying earlier too, we use a lot of abbreviations in financial services, and sometimes it makes it difficult for consumers and other people to get. You look at something and we've just got NUA up there, and people are, I don't know what that stands for. And so that's kind of my first question. So what is NUA? Can anyone tell me what NUA is? Probably not Barry, I know. Yeah, you two are cut off. You're not allowed to answer these, Tom and Barry. Anyone else want to take a shot? Anyone ever heard this term? If not, we'll have to throw it over to one of them. No, it's completely silent. See, this is not a good start, right? You guys are failing my test.
We have someone.
Oh, we've got one. There we go.
Net unrealized appreciation.
Get So we get that's a good start, right? So you win a gift card, well, it's what it stands for, right? You come get it. Now, net unrealized appreciation, right? First of all, I highly doubt anyone really knows exactly what that means in the room, right? And how can reverse mortgages kind of work with this strategy? Net unrealized appreciation is very important in California. Why? Because you have a lot of tech companies that had employer stock inside their 401k and other qualified plans. It's a strategy to take employer stock in your retirement plan and basically get long-term capital gains on all the growth in it. So let's say I worked at Google, and over my 20-year career there, I bought $100,000 of Google stock inside my plan. Well, what might that be worth when I leave? $2 million, $3 million, just depends on when I start, but it could be a couple $1 million. Under this strategy, you can actually roll that out of the 401k when you leave and get long-term capital gains on the whole growth from that $100,000 to $3 million. So I could take my tax rate potentially down from 40% to 15, 20%. And in that case, right, we're talking about $600,000 worth of tax savings. That's an important thing. But when you get to somebody retiring here, a lot of people start to need income. And one of the strategies there can be, well, can we do this in a way and still get income without having to sell all this stock immediately? And reverse mortgages can fit into that. We can provide now an additional non-taxable income source. And that's what's important about it, because we're actually going to have some taxes accruing there, and we might not want to push ourselves up into a higher tax bracket. So reverse mortgages can actually help with this strategy the year somebody retires to help give them enough income to go down this path. If not, some people feel like they have to roll it over into an IRA and they lose this tax benefit. So that's something, not a lot of people in the room probably have thought about this strategy before, but it's out there, and sometimes it can be very beneficial. Now, the next one here is safe withdrawal rate. Maybe have a couple more people that know this number. So this is based on, I've got to be kind of specific in the question, but based on historical performance in the US, you've got a 50-50 bond to equity portfolio. How much could you withdraw from that $1 million without running out of money in 30 years? 4%. Yeah, so who is the one over here? Yeah, come on up. Yeah, green shirt. Yeah, you win. Say, there are receipts with this too, so I made sure you guys doesn't just look like I'm giving out cards, that if they don't turn on, I actually left the receipts with them. Yeah, 4%, right? Now, a lot more people knew this one, right? 4%. That's what we've historically said is our safe withdrawal rate from a portfolio, which is not a lot of money, right? You've got $1 million saved up. Worst case scenario, you can pull out $40,000. That doesn't seem like a whole lot of income, right? One of the reasons for that is going to be that sequence of returns risk I mentioned earlier. Here, we've just got what I would say is a kind of a 10-step retirement income planning process. I do have an ebook coming out on this at the end of next month with Forbes. So if you're interested in retirement income planning, it's only like $3. You can buy it on Kindle, so it's not a bad resource to get. It's going to cover a lot of these strategies in here, and it's really more for consumer. The stuff we do at the college with textbooks, but that's usually kind of a little higher level. General idea here, we don't need to spend a lot of time on it, but it's really goal-based planning again. So we have to look at your situation, figure out what income sources you have, what assets you have, what needs you have, develop plans, and then review that plan over time. And reviewing that plan over time is going to be important because we need to make good decisions, and that's really what the financial advisor should be there to do, is to help the clients make educated decisions. This is research from David Blanchett at Morningstar. This is one of the best research out there showing the value of good financial advice. Basically that with just kind of going from kind of mediocre planning decisions to making good decisions, you can increase your income in retirement by 38%. It's generally what he found here. That's not saving any more money, right? Basically, you just increase your income by 38%. Now, one of the things here, he actually really didn't look at home equity as one of these. So if you put that back in there, you might say, we could actually probably move it up even more. This is a couple years old now, and I think David is planning on doing another one of these in the future. But just making smart decisions can improve people's situation. Once we've already gotten to retirement, I think that's important because we're going to have limitations on how much more we can save for the baby boomer generation. You're too close to retirement to really put a lot more money away. So we're going to have to make smart decisions with the things we have, right? And deal with risks. And here, I've got 18 risks on here. We're going to cover 4 of them kind of in detail. Longevity risk is a big one. We talk about retirement income planning. That's the difficult one. Why? Because longevity risk exacerbates every other risk. The longer you live, the more likely, right, you're going to need long-term care. Your health care costs are going to be longer. All those things, elder abuse, that's a big one too, right? As you age, elder abuse risk is going to increase, frailty risk. It exacerbates so many of these other ones. Sequence of returns risk, that's going to be a big one. I do have a slide on it. I've mentioned it a couple times. And that one's a challenge because we don't worry about it until we start withdrawing money. So you spend 40 years saying, I'm really good with investing and putting money away. Then all of a sudden, sequence of your returns starts to matter. When before you say, well, if I can average 8 for the next 40 years, I'm fine. I don't care about the sequencing. But once you start withdrawing money, it creates problems. That's why our safe withdrawal rate, we might average 8 during that time frame, but we can't withdraw 8, right? And some people, that doesn't quite click with them. They say, well, my investments are going to average 8%, so I should be able to withdraw 8%. But yeah, it's not the case. And then most of that has to do with the sequencing. If you get bad years right at the front when you retire, the market drops, and you have to take a big withdrawal, right, when the market's down, well, you're not going to be able to sustain that portfolio over time. And then I will talk about public policy risk and tax efficiency here. And tax efficiency, and all of these actually, I'm going to kind of touch on them in the sense, how do reverse mortgages fit in? Well, longevity risk, as I said, really exacerbates this problem. We don't know how long any one person is going to live. If I knew you had $2 million and you were going to live to 78 and 3 days, I could manage your assets pretty well. I know exactly how long you're going to live. David Littell, who was actually on the second slide up there with me, his dad passed away 2 months ago at 104. His mom lived to, I think, 96. David's an Olympic athlete. He has real longevity risk, right? If you were his planner, it'd be very hard to pick an age less than 100. You know, I think you'd probably get in trouble one day if you picked 90. And you said, well, both his parents lived past 90, and he was an Olympic athlete, and he still plays tennis every day in his 60s. That's probably an issue. So we do have to look at the individual situation. You know, for him, he's just buying a tremendous amount of life annuities right now, so some insurance company's getting stuck with all that risk. But so the other thing here that's surprising to people is how long people live once you get to age 65. Those numbers there, 25 is actually 27%, but 1 in 4. Once you're at age 65, you have a 27% chance of making to age 90. That's really interesting. Most people in the room probably didn't think it was that high. Usually if you ask people, do you plan on living to age 90? And people say, no, I don't really plan there. I'm not going to plan for that. But if you ask them, if you had a 27% chance to live to a certain age, would you plan for it? What happens? A lot more people start saying, yeah, 27% is not so, I probably plan at least a little bit for that. But not a lot of people plan to live that long. And then 95, that's pretty good too, 10% chance. And if you're married, well, now we've got 2 people with a 10% chance, pretty good chance, right? And at least age 90 with 2 people, we're talking about over a 50% chance one of the 2 is still going to be alive at age 90. So how do we deal with longevity risk? Well, one of the things, we can't really eliminate longevity risk, right? I guess unless we just decided 85 we're going to off ourselves, that's probably it, right? That's the only way we can really eliminate a risk there. Not a great strategy either, but sometimes you like to give people options just so that there are things, right? But can we transfer risk here? That's usually what we're going to do with longevity risk. Can we transfer it to somebody else? Social Security is one way to transfer risk away from you onto an insurance program. Social Security is an insurance program. If you keep living long enough, it will keep making payments to you. They don't care if you're 120. You'll still get your Social Security payments. So one benefit there can be deferring Social Security out. The longer you defer it, really the better for kind of longevity. You know, annuity options from 401ks, not a lot of people pick them, usually because they don't review them enough. There's one, I think it's Oregon, the teachers union, they had an 8% guaranteed cost of living adjustment in their annuity, and something like 30% of people took the annuity option, which is insane because you can't get that anywhere. But people usually don't review the annuity options that much. Most people take the lump sum out. But you need to look at the annuity option inside your plans. Why? Because a lot of times, because of purchasing power, those are better than anything else you could buy out on the market. So again, that could help us with longevity risk. You could go out and purchase a regular life annuity, going to make payments either starting today for the rest of our life, or we can see our deferred income annuities. There's been some movement there. They're becoming a little bit more popular. Something called QLAC, I don't know if you've heard that terminology recently. That's a special kind of a deferred annuity that you can now actually have inside of your IRA. That's actually brand new. Only about a year ago, the government allowed for those. Now, the other thing here, right, is our HECM, our home equity conversion mortgage. This can help with longevity, right? Might not be perfect because we're still going to have to stay in the house, but it can help. In some cases, it can help us do things like defer Social Security. So maybe not directly helping us with longevity, but indirectly. If we can defer Social Security because we can find an income source early in retirement from 62 to 70, well, now we've just reduced some of our longevity risk. We've transferred that over to somebody else. Roth IRAs can have a sense of longevity protection because they're not subject to RMDs. Those required payouts that have to start at 70 and a half, Roths are excluded for that. And I'll talk a little bit later that home equity reverse mortgages can actually help us get money from our traditional accounts over to a Roth. And so again, another way that can kind of help out with longevity risk. Sequence of returns risk and home equity is probably the best matchup, and especially the last week, it's a perfect time to talk about this. As I hope everyone has noticed the last week, the markets have been a little bit volatile, right? Yeah, a little bit.
How about a little?
Yeah, a little bit. You know, don't check your retirement balances this week, right? You don't want to sell those now. And no matter how many times we always tell the public, and probably people in this room, right, now is not a good time to sell. We know behaviorally, a lot of people sell when the market's low and they buy when it's high. It's the opposite of what you should be doing. A lot of people probably are going to sell right now, and especially if this is your first year of retirement, this could be really bad for you. Yeah, this is the face up here. Yeah, not a good year to be entering into retirement, most likely. Probably actually have overvalued stocks that are still going to drop for a little bit. But this sequencing of returns is really important, and if we can, one of the big challenges for retirement income planning has always been, how do we come up with some type of cash flow in the beginning of retirement that's not tied to the markets? Because we can't plan exactly when we're going to retire as it relates to where the market's acting. We don't really have a whole lot of control over that. So how can we create other income sources there? Well, one thing is we can go out and buy bonds. Well, bond rates today aren't so great either. Well, you know, 1% is still better than negative 10%, but, you know, yeah, it's not great either. So some of those strategies, 1980s when CDs were paying 17%, sure, that's not a bad strategy. Today, a little bit harder. It's going to take a lot of money to purchase that income. Some people like the idea of holding cash for your first couple years of retirement. Well, we also know that usually doesn't work well. Why? Because you give up too much potential growth. And kind of on the average person, it's not going to work well. So we have to look for other sources. One of them is going to be home equity. It's not really market correlated with those lines of credit. We get them set up, we can withdraw from it, and that can really help us out. This is really my example. Sometimes these numbers get messed up, but the concepts that's important. I think they're right for right now. But this is an example of two people I show that have the same average returns. I'm just saying they really had 0% returns. They're in a volatile market, things aren't going well. It's up 40%, down 40%, all over the place. And now they have the exact same returns. So you see, let's see here, you got 5 years. This person, Peggy, is actually, she's the one that has good returns. Her first year of retirement, market goes up, or her investments, I should say, goes up 40%, then up 20% the next year, then 0, down 20, down 40, and she wants to withdraw some money out each year. What we see here is, she basically ends up okay after 5 years. She's withdrawing $1,100 a year after 5 years. It looks basically like she withdrew $1,100 a year. Now, this one here, this is the opposite. Really what I'm saying here, what happens if we flip those returns, right? And this is what I say, my numbers sometimes are off, it should flip there. But let's say that we're going to have negative 40, negative 20, 0, 20, 40, that we're going to do the opposite returns. What happens? The same withdrawals, and this time Joe, right, he ends up with $249. He only withdrew the exact same amount as Peggy did. They had the exact same returns, but the order of them were switched. Peggy's still fine. She's got, basically 0% return and actually got basically 0% return. He didn't. He's out of money after withdrawing, $5,600. It's $5,500. It's over. That's sequencing of returns, right? If you have really bad returns up front, you've got to take money out. It wipes out your portfolio. And so, again, how can we help out with that? Well, reverse mortgages can provide a non-market related, right, income source. How can we diversify, right? Get that home equity line set up. If the market drops, don't sell our assets. Use home equity instead, right? And in some ways, that concept's really easy. Do I want to borrow from my house at 4%, or do I want to sell my equities when they're down 10%? That's really simple to me, right? Of course I'd rather borrow at 4% than sell when everything's down 10. Again, figuring out if they're actually down, that's a different issue. Other things here, we talk about dropping equities when we start nearing retirement, when we're getting closer to it. and then probably bumping them back up a couple years into retirement. So there are a bunch of different ways we can use our home equity, reverse mortgages being one of them. Some of the other ones there, you don't see the house sharing. We talk about it, the Golden Girls situation, we all move in together, but we don't see a lot of that, right? It's an option, don't see a lot of it. Sale leasebacks, usually just family member relationships there. Sell the house, parents get inflow of cash, lease it back. There could be some tax benefits to that too, but again, usually that's family situations. So we have some solutions here, and reverse mortgages need to become a bigger part of it. And part of it's this. I have 2 slides that look like this. I've got another one where I put Social Security benefits in there. But this is saying, as I mentioned before, we get towards retirement. Where are assets? Where do we have money saved up? Well, you see here, actually if we can see that number, I think it says 192, yeah, 192,552 equity at home. And non-equity assets, people have 90,000, 92,000, right? It's not a whole lot of money we have saved up for retirement. If you took Social Security in here, you'd actually see that's the biggest one. It's in the 200,000s, kind of as a present value for most people. But this means we've got to make smart decisions with what? Which one of those looks more important to make smart decisions with? Yeah, you start looking at it, you say, yeah, actually, I should probably be paying more attention to my decisions about home equity here than my other assets, my 401k, my IRA. Why? I've got twice as much saved up there, right? That's a big difference. Yeah, question?
You have a big average up there. At what age average is this married couple?
Yeah, so this is at 65.
Thank you.
Yeah. And so I do have this is from the US Census data too, so you can, going through that data is not always fun, but you can at least replicate what we did here too. So it's not just making it up. Well, maybe the government made up some of it, because they kind of average some of that stuff too. Barry, your question?
Yeah, this is very central, very crucial. My question is whether this average washes out the, imagine that everybody that has equity in their home has no, whatever that 32% is unbeatable, invested assets. Are they the same people? In other words, if you got a lot of people who would be on an individual, granular basis, just like that.
Yeah, I mean, that's always tough. When you look at the US Census data, it'd be very hard to figure that out, right? If the person with $300,000 in home equity is also the same person with $90,000 of 401k assets, or is it skewed one way and basically some people just have zero of everything, and
Exactly.
yeah.
This is crucial because obviously if, in fact, the people with the home equity don't have any invested assets to titrate the home equity against and absorb that sequence of returns, and likewise the people who have the invested assets don't have any home equity because they're renters, then we can never use the strategy.
Yeah.
There's a lot of individuals who are really individually represented by that graph. Then we've got a massive market. We're talking about many tens of millions of people who can benefit from the use of reverse mortgages.
Yeah, and so I don't have, it would be better, it'd be nice to have like a median of both instead.
The overall numbers match this
They're
for
pretty-
individuals.
Yeah, they're pretty, I mean, I know from, because once you start getting the median of investable, because, yeah, those are from a different source, but you can look at 401k balance as the median level, and they start looking pretty similar, about $100,000, and same thing for home equity, you start seeing about the same. So, yeah, this one's probably not perfect to that, but it's still pretty close. So when you say, are there millions of people in there that look like this? Absolutely. And actually, if you go to a financial planner, even though they tell you their clients are all high net worth, a lot of their clients are going to look like this, right? Or they have kind of small balances generally in their 401ks, IRAs, and a lot of money in their home equity, again, because it was automatic, that they've been paying off that mortgage for a long time. Now, we do have that phenomena occurring now, especially kind of my generation, where we're seeing a lot less home buyers, right? A lot more renters. Some of that's driven by student loan debt. I guess if you live in San Francisco, you can't buy anyway. It's just impossible. You get to move somewhere else. Honolulu, I think, might be second in the country now for highest rent. So that's going to put some challenges moving forward. But the baby boomer generation, this is pretty representative of that kind of middle America, what their assets look like. And we don't really need to cover that one there. So this is one of the, that's more home equity income options, their traditional line of credit. And for that one, the research we saw there has mostly been if it's a short-term thing in retirement, it might work well. If it's going to be a long-term, you're going to have that for the remainder of your retirement. It's probably not a good thing to have that cash outflow for the remainder of your retirement. Reverse mortgages, right, helps us a lot with cash flow here. So some of these things here, right, this is the stuff that maybe I guess the industry doesn't always want to admit, but a lot of times they have been used poorly in the past. There's a lot of misconceptions out there on reverse mortgages, probably even in the room, even with very knowledgeable people. We come up with different answers to questions about reverse mortgages. We had that last night, just about a couple different tax issues with them, and disagreement in the room on what actually occurs. I think this is a big challenge moving forward, though. Getting the public and getting financial advisors who, I wouldn't say have the worst view of reverse mortgages, but it's not overly positive, not the start. We have to make that move occur. So there's a lot of things that we're going to have to do. Building those relationships, and actually Jim was talking about, there's going to be challenges with marketing material and advertisement and kickbacks. That's an issue all across the board. But we've got to start understanding what both sides are doing, which is why I went over some of that language stuff earlier, right? As a reverse mortgage industry, when you talk to financial planners, moving forward, we're going to have to understand things like net unrealized appreciation, Roth IRAs, sequence of returns risk. If you can't walk in and understand how it fits into the strategies, right, it's never going to match together. So it's going to require, in both industries, to understand that. Compliance is a huge issue, and I love this. A couple of people have been saying this now in the retirement income planning world, right? Yeah, that home equity retirement income is kind of the Swiss Army knife of retirement income. It can do a lot of different things for you, right? It's not just one strategy, one risk that it can help out with. A lot of different things. I talked about sequence of return. That's a big one. And some of the research we've seen here with lines of credit, this is something I do for financial planners when we're setting up that line of credit. When should we set that up? I saw 2 slides ago with the average reverse mortgage is 71, right? And I say, well, when should that continue to be the average? Yeah, no, right? It's one thing, I love the slide here, it's the best one, right? It's early, right? Set that up early in retirement. That line of credit is going to keep growing. We're going to have that ability to use it for sequence of returns, use it to defer Social Security. And so then I do it again. It's like, when should I consider about using home equity? I should use it early in retirement, right? And now that doesn't always necessarily mean you're going to tap into it, but you should get that line of credit. You should think about this early in retirement. It can't just be that end-of-life planning add-on, right? When everything else has failed us, that we roll into the reverse mortgage because it's the last asset we have left over. Right? There's been a lot of research out there that says that's probably not the best thing to do, using it strategically up front, either to reduce market volatility with our sequence of returns, to defer Social Security, to use with Roths. Something in there needs to happen. Here we talk about public policy risk, and this is what I say, kind of that changing wind for retirement income planning, that the process, the way that we're going to get there is going to continue to change. Social Security is the single most important aspect of retirement planning in the United States. And, you can argue about it, but you're wrong. It's the most important. And you want to know why? 1/3, right, of retirees, where do they get all of their retirement income from? Social Security, right? 2/3 of retirees get more than half of their income from Social Security. So if you're sitting at a table, right, and you looked at the 2 people to the next side of you, either you or one of them would be solely reliant on Social Security in retirement. That's if we were representative of the country. I highly doubt this room, income-wise, is representative of the country, but that's what it would be, right? So you can sit at a table, you'd be like Social Security only, right? That's the table right there. We have 2 people at that table, that would have no other retirement income besides Social Security. That's a big thing. And so we have to make good decisions about this. And a lot of our planning strategies with Social Security just came to an end. You might have seen news stories on this, but a lot of our file and suspend strategies are basically dead. We've got about 8 years where we phase them out. So it's nice and complicated for 8 years that there's different sets of rules for everyone, but they are really ending. Now this one here, another gift card question. If you defer Social Security benefits from 67 to 68, what do you get there? What type of increase?
8%.
Yeah, 8%. You can come up and grab your gift card? Yeah? You win. Yeah, see, 8%. How many people knew that one? Okay, good portion of the room, right? That's really important. Why? How many other assets out there that you're investing in or using that you're getting 8% guaranteed return in? Not a whole lot, right? That doesn't mean everyone should defer Social Security benefits. If you're an unhealthy single male, 62 is probably the best time to collect. Outside of that, there's not a whole lot of people that shouldn't at least consider deferring. Another thing is, technically it's supposed to be actuarially equivalent, but the life expectancy tables that Social Security uses don't match up to our life expectancy now. They're actually outdated tables. We actually have longer longevity than the tables say, so it's actually better right now to defer based on that. The other thing, if you can, deferring is a great thing. And I do have an extra gift card, though this is the question. Does anyone know about how many people do you think defer as a percentage of the population out to 70? That's as late as we can defer. 10? That's a good guess. 9, 18, it's less than 1%. Less than 1% of the population defers out to age 70. So despite the fact that every article you read about Social Security probably says defer to 70, less than 1% of the population is able to do that. Why? Well, you go back and look at their assets. Most people retire at 62. They've got $90,000 of, non-home equity assets. Is $90,000 going to get you from 62 to 70? No, you're not going to get there. Now, maybe, right, 90,000 plus half that 270, well, maybe there we could get to 70, right? Or at least 68, you might be able to do 6 years. So that's something, right? That's when we start talking about the power of mixing in, Social Security and home equity together. You actually can model this pretty well too, with just looking at somebody 62 to 70, replacing the exact amount they would get from Social Security with home equity payments each month and deferring out. The big thing there, right? What's the difference in the benefit, right? If you wait till 70. You have 100, well, it's really 76% more than if you take at 62. That's a huge amount of money, right? You've almost doubled how much money you have from Social Security in 8 years, which to me is always impressive. 8 years, I can get 76% of it. How long did it take me to get that other 100%? 35 years, right? Yeah, that's my working career. That's the max that I pay into Social Security. So it took me 35 years to get the first 100%. And it can take me 8 years to get an additional 76%. So when you start looking at it like that, you say, man, that really probably should be paying attention to this 76% I can get in 8 years. That's a lot more important than what I was doing for the last 35. And so, this is important in another sense too because of inflation. Social Security has cost of living adjustments, or COLA, as they call it. It's not perfect. It's actually based off the CPI-W workers, which is a silly thing to base it off of because when I'm 70, do I care how many computers are sold and what the price of computers are? No, I don't. There is an experimental one for the elderly. Maybe it'll change one day. But the more we defer Social Security, what happens, the more of our income becomes cost of living adjusted. We're protected better from inflation. So there's another benefit there to being able to defer. This is showing here we have had a little bit of an increase in when people are claiming benefits. It's not as drastic as you would like it to see, but you're actually seeing that people are getting out to 65. That's still a really low number. Talking about people, a third of people making it that far, not a whole lot. So it's getting a little bit better. Here I'll show kind of maximum benefits. For some, you say, okay, $3,500 a month at age 70, that's not so bad. This is not the average benefit. Basically, you should cut all of these in half. When you're talking about average benefits, it's more like $1,200. So people aren't getting that much from Social Security, but that's it. That's all they're getting. Now, we did see a lot of changes recently. How many people here are over 62? Yeah. So, anyone turned 62 between January 1st and now? No one? All right. So that's the one? Yeah, so you're the unfortunate one in the group. All the other 62-year-olds, they actually get some of the old rules, and you're under the new rules. So we had a very short cutoff for some of this. Now, this is all about our file and suspend strategies. These are coming to an end. This is what financial advisors have been talking about for the last 8 years now, right? Oh, we can file and suspend all these cool claiming strategies. And the government finally said, you know what, we're ending these. Why? Well, when we also went back and looked at the data, who did all these strategies, it was wealthy individuals who actually had assets enough to defer out to 70, right? So the government said, we're going to shut some of these down. File and suspend, you can do that at your full retirement age. Most of the room, 66. Some people will be up to 67. There were 3 purposes for this before. You could file for what we call retroactive benefits. So if you filed at 66, you could file and suspend, and at 69, you could actually go back and get a lump sum for the last 4 years. Not a whole lot of people use that strategy, but it was a pretty good strategy. The bigger one here is triggering spousal benefits. That's where most of the claiming strategies came into place. Now, one of these is staying around. The start, stop, start strategy, as we call it. That is if you get somebody, and I just had somebody recently, I talked them into filing and suspending. They had started Social Security benefits at 62. They didn't need Social Security benefits at 62. They just didn't pay attention to it. They said, I'll go take it. Well, you can still file and suspend when you get your full retirement age and start getting those deferral credits again. When you claim early, your benefits are reduced. When you defer, you get increases. And right now, if you claim at 62, full retirement age is 66, the kind of benefit you'll get from filing and suspending at 66 and restarting at 70, you'll kind of get back to 100% of your benefits at 70. So that's still going to be around for everyone. So for people who make poor decisions, there's still a way to kind of undo that. As I said, anyone born here, these new rules are kind of kick in, and basically we don't have a lot of file and suspend strategies left. We don't really need to go into the details of these. If you get really excited about this and we want to talk about file and suspend strategies afterwards, great. That's even kind of high level. Some of the rules are difficult for financial planning, so it's not a great time to stand here and talk about them. I saw one hand question.
If you got a female spouse, she's 66, husband's 65.
We'll do this over there. Yeah, but once we get to that question, we'll talk about it. But so this is again just showing, deferring, taking benefits early, stopping them, and turning them back on. Basically, you can get back to 100%. So if you're 62, you turn on benefits, you're supposed to get $2,000 at 66, but you turn on 4 years early, collect benefits for 4 years. At full retirement age, you can still file and suspend, and basically get back to that amount again. So you can kind of undo the harm that you caused originally. And I think that's just an important thing to think about.
Is another way of saying that buying back the time?
You could think about it like buying back the time. Yeah, like by claiming early, you get a reduction. By stopping benefits, for suspending them voluntarily, they'll kind of give you new deferral credits, and it'll make up for the early claiming that you did before. Similar concept. Yeah, question?
Can you comment or inform us about the risk of Social Security and the health of the
I can, yeah. So Social Security, some people, if you read the trust fund from last year, 2033, that's when Social Security's income from payments and what they have saved today will no longer be able to meet all the promised benefits. That doesn't mean Social Security falls completely apart. What happens is they can make payments at 77% of what's expected. That's a big drop, right? That's worst case scenario. That's literally if we do nothing, right? Absolutely nothing. It will go to 77%, and basically it can pay, 3/4 of that for another 50, 60 years. So it doesn't completely fall apart. Nobody wants to get to that point. So what happens? How do you fix that? Well, there's different ways to fix it. One of them is reducing benefits. The reduction of these claim and file and suspend benefits. These were pretty small, honestly, because not that many people took advantage of them. Some people could lose $50,000 present value, but in the aggregate, this is going to have a very small, if any, impact, I think, on the trustee outlook. But reducing benefits could be one way. How do you do that? The easiest, you move up the full retirement age. We've done it in the past. You will see it again. That one's pretty short. Another thing we can do is we can increase taxes, right? That's the one thing the federal government has the ability to do, right? The challenge there, though, right, is, do you just increase, where do you kind of make people pay more taxes? You see different, kind of goals there. There's some strategies that say, well, you pay taxes now in Social Security basically up to about $118,000. Once you hit that, your taxable wage base, you don't pay Social Security taxes anymore. So some people say, if you remove that cap, pay Social Security taxes on all of your income forever, it fixes the funding shortfall. And I think it impacts about 10% of the population, so 10% of the population would fund the rest of the system. That's a possibility. You can actually make it less drastic and basically skip from there to $250. I think that's the one Social Security's been pushing, kind of, because it came up in the report last time. If you start at $250 and add taxes on from there, could basically wipe out the shortfall too. So that's what we're going to see a mix of, right? Reduce benefits and increase taxes. You will see a mix of both. It's not just going to be one. But yeah, that's an important topic. And I do see financial advisors actually now, very conservative ones, will actually put in 77% of the projected benefit. That's very conservative. Maybe not a bad thing. I mean, if you're going to cover yourself, it's very conservative, but you do kind of address that risk. So I think that's about our time now. 5 more minutes or 5 more minutes? Okay. So last part here was about tax efficiency. So tax efficiency, right? We don't want to, as I saw your face when I said we're going to increase taxes, you're like, oh, yeah, right? Well, yeah, we might. So this one here, I think I've got one more gift card left. Actually, I've got 2. So here, anyone know this one? Your Social Security benefits. You're like, well, those were my taxes originally. It might be a surprise to you. They are going to be taxed again, potentially. So the 0 we can throw out. But does anyone know here, how much of your Social Security benefits could be subject to tax?
100%.
What?
40.
100%.
No, it's actually 85. Yeah, it's over there first. Yeah. That guy? Yeah? I don't know. Somebody can come up and collect it. I don't really care. It's just to reward you guys for paying attention to me, right? Thanks. Yeah, so 85% of your benefits could be subject to taxation. Now, why is what I say could be? That's not your tax rate. That's the max that could be subject to tax. So let's just say you had $1,000 benefit a month, $850 that could be subject to taxation. Now, we actually do have very good strategies in financial planning now to kind of get around some of these taxes. What is that? What's really Roth IRAs. That's one of the best ones. There's something called provisional income. It's your adjusted gross income plus half your Social Security benefits plus tax-exempt municipal bonds, interest, those types of things. They get added together. You get a number called provisional income. You look at a chart and it tells you how much of your Social Security is taxed. Well, you know what's not in adjusted gross income? Distributions from Roth IRAs. Home equity, not included in adjusted gross income. So if those are your income sources, well, we might actually be able to remove 85%, right, of taxable income of your Social Security. That could be a pretty big deal, right? If your tax rate's 20, 30%, you can remove 20, 30% from, $1,000 a month for the rest of your life. That's a big deal. So Roth conversions now are becoming kind of more popular. At first we used to say, well, if our tax rate's the same today as it is in the future, it doesn't matter which one we do. If our tax rates are going to be lower in the future, we should have a regular IRA, we shouldn't convert. But now we're saying, well, There's a lot of other factors here. We actually have a little bit more wiggle room than that. We actually could pay higher taxes today in a Roth conversion and still be better off in the future. And so this strategy here, basically there's my little piggy bank. That one, I like that new commercial with the Taco Bell one. And it's all worried it's going to get smashed. It's got the little rubber thing underneath. Our general idea with the Roth conversion, we've got a tax-deferred account. We're going to pay taxes on it. We're going to move it over to a Roth account. Now we get tax-free income that comes out of it in retirement. And so our home equities, reverse mortgages can help a lot with here. This is a pretty complicated example. Well, actually, it's complicated and simple at the same time. I should do a little bit more on this one to make it a little bit more accurate. The idea here, though, is that because our home equity is non-taxable, it doesn't go into our AGI, we can actually use that, use a reverse mortgage to help convert money from a traditional IRA over to a Roth. And that can be the source that we pay the taxes for the conversion on. Because if we started taking that money from something else taxable, it starts moving up our AGI again. And so we run into all these problems there, trying to keep our tax rate low while moving money over. And so this is a kind of a simple example here where basically I don't do anything here except for take money from your house to pay taxes over a number of years. And I move up the person's present value of their kind of assets by $83,000. There aren't any more returns on it. There wasn't, I just avoided taxes and basically $85,000 up from, I think this person had $1.5 million, or I guess they've got $2 million of income, and I moved it up by, $80,000. That's pretty good, right? That's a 4% return kind of on their overall assets without having to invest, without having to do anything. So Roth and home equity fit in well together because of all the tax efficiencies of it. And if somebody wants to discuss this later, I'll be more than happy to go into it. And then I think I just want to get to the end now here, kind of wrap up the conversation. So one of the things here, I have this get educated. Education always has to be a part of things. It's not going to be the whole thing to getting reverse mortgage and financial services together, but it's got to be part of it. Financial services need to learn about reverse mortgages. The American College is doing that. Like I said, we've got 10,000 advisors that are learning now about how to use reverse mortgages in retirement income planning. It also requires, though, banks and reverse mortgage companies to learn something about the retirement income field. Because these strategies, you need to understand the language at least to say, oh, well, we could help out if you're doing a Roth conversion or net unrealized appreciation or deferring Social Security. Don't have to perfectly understand it, but generally understand the strategies and concepts out there. Now, if you want to build relationships with advisors, it's going to be a lot of personal level stuff. You're going to have